up there? Do you know who's upstairs?
Adam and
Adam and Daniel. Hey, would you throw up real quickly, it's on there, the quiz. There'll be one on the PowerPoints that says family quiz. And we'll do that while we're waiting on everybody to kind of get moved in here in a second. And you go ahead. There we go.
So we gave them their bear spray yesterday, but they handed it back to me, and I don't think you realize how important this is. See, if you ever encounter a bear, what you do is you turn this around backwards and you spray yourself in the face. And while you're running around and screaming, you so confuse the bear that he takes off. They want nothing to do with an idiot like that.
That's true.
So there is the theory that though you might have peppered yourself and you might be really tasty. So, it may backfire on you. But I just wanted to know there are really important reasons for carrying around bear.
I thought maybe that you could tell what the bear was eating by smelling of what it was left over and go, does that smell like bear spray? Okay, well, he ate a person last.
Well, thank you all for being here this morning. I hope, thank you for the team. They're not in here right now, but thanks to the team who put together that breakfast. That was really wonderful and a really generous gift. I'd ask Lauren to come up here and lead us in an opening prayer, and then we'll get started with this morning's session.
Wonderful.
Daniel, can you turn on this microphone, please?
Almighty God, eternal in the heavens, the glorious sovereign ruler of this universe, we call to great privilege the opportunity to come into your presence at all time and know that you love us with all of our impurities, that you're willing to forgive us as we repent and come to you. We thank you for your Son, Jesus, who made all this a possibility, having lived a perfect life and then paid the price for all of our sins, and the only event in all of history that can change man's eternal destiny. We thank you for your Son. We thank you, Lord Jesus, and pray you be merciful to us and forgive us and guide us in all the paths of righteousness. We thank you for the privilege of being here this morning. We pray for Lee and Trey as they guide our minds this morning, that we would grow in all ways, family-wise, marriage-wise, in all ways, to give glory and honor to your name and guide others to see how good the life is that's walking in the steps of Jesus. Thank you for this morning. Thank you for everyone that's here. Pray that we would all be blessed highly from our time here, that we would grow, serve you better, glorify your name, spend eternity with you in heaven. In Jesus, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So let's, while we're waiting on everybody to kind of get settled, which is totally fine, let's look at that family quiz that's right up there at the front of your book for just a moment and talk about just some statistics for you to get to know families a little bit better. Here's what percentage of American families have no savings account. 25%. Don't know what you have on your, we'll fill them out as you go. 25% have no savings account. You probably know this, but one of the top 2 reasons for divorce in our country is money issues, because you may look at that and go, well, I don't see what the big deal is about that. It's like money issues are like a big wrecking ball that just seem to hit all the other little cracks in your marriage and make them bigger. So living within your income is very important, which we'll talk about here in just a bit. The average American household income is about $47K, and that may have changed. This is probably a couple of years old. Here's the thing we want you to catch. The average American family carries in debt. Anybody got a guess on your paper? About 117. So can you see the difference in numbers? You got families without a savings account. You've got medium income, and then you've got twice as much in debt. And so you have to be very cautious about that. Let's talk about the father in the home. We talked about this last night. And if anything, I want you dads to realize when you leave how important you are. But here is something. 70% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. There's got to be something to those statistics. Ready for this one? 80% of all youth sitting in prisons grew up in fatherless homes. In fact, we have a little prison outside of our community in the state of Texas called the T.L. Roach Unit that houses about, I don't remember what it is, 1,500 inmates, I believe. And they will tell you on a regular basis that their number one day for mail going out is Mother's Day. And on Father's Day, there is absolutely, you can't tell that there's any difference in mail than any other day of the week. Majority of the men in prison have grown up in fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. This is important. We're going to talk about this here just shortly. We always like to throw this in here. Because when we talk marriage and when we talk intimacy, there's a lot of people, it's not unusual. Our most popular marriage podcasts, 3-to-1, 3 times more listening anytime we talk about sexual intimacy in marriage and the way that God designed it. So there's a lot of people that have questions about this, and we just always try to provide answers the best that we can in a biblical, good way. And this is one of the questions we get often. How much as a married couple are we supposed to be intimate? Of course, that all depends on, do you have a whole bunch of toddlers in your house? Are you empty nesters? Are you in your 80s? So we actually don't know where this study comes from, but about 8 to 10 times per month. Now, here's the point we want you to catch, and we said this 2 years ago when we were here. You should never be held back by what the averages are. Does that make sense? And what I mean is, you don't look at this and go, hey, that's less than us or that's more than us. You should set your own average. Does that make sense as a couple? Now, can we also say, this is really important, that a husband and a wife should mutually set this. This is not a one person gets to decide how often this happens. It should be a mutual agreement between a husband and a wife. And if you're content with 3 times a year, fantastic. That's normal. Then enjoy. If you're content with 3 times a week, then wonderful. Nobody should be pinned down to saying, well, this is how many times we're supposed to be doing things. So that's really, really important. 47% of teenagers have never had sex. I personally, there's a lot of mixed emotions about this. I like the fact that number is as high as it is. This one's a little bit scarier. 72% of parents are talking about sex to their kids. That should be a subject you're having with your children in elementary school. You start young. You don't have to introduce everything, make everything age appropriate. As they get to junior high, you continue to have that discussion, and it's a lot more comfortable. When they get to high school, you're having that discussion. You've already had it back when they were younger, and it's a very easy thing to do. If you wait until they're 8th graders in junior high, they've heard a lot. They've probably got it all messed up. They're all confused, and you've waited about 4 or 5 years too late to start on that. So if you're not talking to your kids about sex, then the world is. And that's not who you want to be teaching your kids about sex. I think that it is important that we do that as parents. I think it's important that we talk about these things at church. The world talks about it. It's a beautiful thing God has given married couples. And so we also ought to not be afraid to talk about it. 34%, this is just a reminder, these are things you need to talk about with your kids. 34% of teens that have had sex in the past 3 months, of that 34%, 41 of those did not use any kind of protection. Again, these are all things that these are just things parents need to know. There's a lot of scary statistics out there that parents need to know. This statistic is a little out of date. It's about 46% now. 40%, 6% of families today are blended families. More and more families are blended families instead of nuclear or traditional families. Our last session today, we'll talk about this. Lee grew up in a nuclear traditional family. I grew up in a blended family, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go. Blended families today are looking for all kinds of help because they're like, this is a lot harder than we thought. We'll talk about that in a little while. 46% live in traditional nuclear families. Sorry, I meant to throw that up there. Number one fear of children and teens today is something will happen to their family. If you have kids in junior high and especially elementary school, you go, why would kids be afraid in elementary school? Your kids are scared to death in elementary school. Can I tell you why? Because they go every day to school and they sit down next to another little boy or a little girl that say, I haven't seen my dad in 2 years. Or my mom left 2 months ago and I don't know where she's at. Or I live with my grandparents. Do you understand? So they're hearing things from their peers, and it scares them to death. That is why, Lee mentioned it last night, it is so important for you to let your children see you as a married couple. They need to see you being affectionate. They need to see you holding hands. They need to see you going on dates. They need to see you kissing in the kitchen and walk in and go, gross, y'all stop and get a room. Because what you're doing is you're calming those fears that they have that something's going to happen to my family and to my parents. When they can see you loving each other as a husband and a wife, not just as mom and dad, that is a very, very healthy thing for your kids. Don't underestimate the importance of saying, hey, y'all are home tonight, we got a sitter or whatever it is, and we're going on a date. They need that. They need to know my mom and dad love each other. You are doing good to your kids. Number 12, the average married couple, get this, why is the divorce rate as high as it is? The average married couple only gets 4 minutes a day, daily with one another. Now, we're not talking about, hey, we watched an hour-and-a-half movie last night. This is 4 minutes couples are face-to-face talking every day on average. The reason is jobs, kids, internet, television, hobbies, and everything else. Your marriage can't make it work on 4 minutes a day. You got to have more. This is just an interesting statistic. In the 80s, the average age for men getting married was 22 and women were 20. Today, it is 29 and 27. So we're waiting longer to get married. Are there some pros and cons to both? Absolutely. We're not saying one way's right and one way's wrong, but it's interesting that today we're marrying later than we used to. All right, now we'll throw that other PowerPoint up, the one on marriage, and we'll go from there. So glad you're here. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Let me share a couple of things with you. We brought some books. We always do because we believe that marriage books are a blessing. There's 3 things that we look back on in our marriage. Hindsight's 20/20, meaning we look back and we go, oh, we did that well. There were 3 things that we think made a huge difference in our marriage. One, we attended every workshop like this that was ever offered. When we were newly married, and even after we weren't newly married, if somebody had a marriage workshop, a marriage retreat, a marriage class, a marriage anything, we showed up. That helped us amazingly to have communication, to talk about things, and to understand and learn each other. The second thing that we did that was a huge blessing to us is at a retreat that we went to one time, one of the speakers said, you should be reading a marriage book once a year minimum, and if you can, twice a year. And what he said was he encouraged us to find a book and read together as a husband and wife. And so we started doing that. And basically it's not, you don't read out loud to your spouse, but I would read a chapter and I'd underline things that I thought, oh, that's really good. I hope Lee will see that. Yeah, I like that. And then she would go and read through that chapter the next day or later that day, and I'd go back and see what Lee highlighted. And sometimes I'd ask her, I'd say, why did you highlight this? Why is this important to you? And it made for some fabulous discussion. And so we have read lots and lots of marriage books. And that was a huge blessing to our marriage. And so we're big on marriage books. Marriage podcasts are good. Those were two things that we did. I'll tell you about the third thing in a minute. But we started a few years ago. We thought let's put out a couple of marriage books with material that is good, godly advice. And we did this one first. This is just a marriage book. This is a lot of our workshop material, our marriage workshop, but in much deeper form. A lot of churches use this and small groups use this for other couples. Let's get together, read chapter 1, come next week, and let's talk about it. Discussion questions in the back. This has probably been our bestseller and our most popular book. One of the other books that we've liked really well are devotional books. And that is where we've tried to, once a year or twice a year, to do a devotional book where it has a spiritual application that ties into marriage. As we'll talk about in a minute, one of the things couples are really lacking today, we understand sexual intimacy, we understand intellectual intimacy where we're having conversation, recreational intimacy where we're hiking together and having fun together, but a lot of couples are really struggling in spiritual intimacy. And that is where you connect spiritually with your spouse and with God. And so devotional books help that a ton. This is a book that goes through the book of Proverbs. You read a chapter from Proverbs, you read chapter 1 that goes with it, and then there's a few discussion questions. It has prayer prompts so that you can pray with your spouse. It is just a really good book for connecting couples spiritually that have kind of maybe had some struggles with that. And then this is the one we put out in December. It's a marriage challenge book. It's my favorite because I like short stuff, quick. I don't want to sit down for a long time. That's just me. And so you can get up every morning and there's like 3 paragraphs. Here's your challenge, your marriage challenge for the day. And today I am going to do a better job at whatever this is. And there's a verse that goes with it, a little prayer prompt. You and your spouse read it and you go, this is our challenge today. Let's step it up and let's do better on this. There are 60 marriage challenges in this book for about 2 months worth of let's step it up and kind of improve our marriage. So those are out there. We just wanted you to know they're out there. You are not obligated to buy anything. If you want a marriage book, pick one up. There's a place back there for you to make some change. Feel free to make change in the contribution plate back there. We're good with that. We also have Venmo and Cash App, and we had forgot to put those out there and did this morning. And if you want a Venmo or Cash App, you can do that as well. But again, no obligation, but those are out there. And several of you had asked us what's the differences in the book, and we wanted to share that. All right? What do you want to add? Man, I have talked a lot for an extrovert, and you need to say something. So let's talk a little bit about marriage this morning, because strong marriages make what kind of families? Strong families. And one of the best gifts you can give your kids is the gift of a good marriage. You love your kids. You want to show your kids you love your kids. You want to bless your kids. You want to do good things for your kids. Then love your spouse. It's one of the best things you can do for your kids. Build a marriage that blesses you, but also blesses your children and your children's children. Now, Lee and I are very different people. You and your spouse are very different people. We have lots of differences, and you know what? It's all right that we're different. God tends to put different people together in marriage. We're attracted to different people. So let me run through. Actually, I'm going to throw all these up there for fun, and we'll just go through and talk about them. None of these are on a list, but okay, get this. I'm a be on time person, and I know there's some of you in here because I met one of them yesterday. Be on time. Do I have some be on time people in here? Okay, for those not raising your hand, let me explain what be on time means. That means you're there 15 minutes before it starts. Amen. Being on time does not mean you're coming in the door as it's beginning. That means you're 15 minutes late, all right? I'm the be on time guy in this marriage, but I didn't marry a be on time girl.
Let's just say if running late were an exercise, I would be so fit.
We started last night where we're staying going, what time you want to leave in the morning, and bargaining on, I started early, she started late, where we could kind of meet in the middle so that we would have time to do that. I am honestly not a super organized. I'm a little disorganized.
Just a little. You're getting better.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
I'm pretty organized. I think everything has its place, and I want everything in its place.
I'm not big on details. I don't feel like you need to give me a lot of details. I don't need to share a lot of details with you. I don't know if that's a man thing or what. We get ready to go on trips, and actually I flew not long ago to a place up north in Illinois, and Lee and one of her friends asked me. I went by myself, speak at a men's event. They said, "Where are you going?" I said, I don't know. They said, "You leave tomorrow." And I said, "Well, right now I'm thinking the plane stops, I'll get off. I'll look before we go." They said, "Are you renting a car? Somebody picking you up? Who's picking you up?" I said, "I've got somebody picking me up, but I don't know who it is yet." They said, "What exactly do you know about this trip?" I said, "I speak 3 times. I come home Monday. Right now, that's pretty much all I need to know. I don't need all the details right now."
I need all the details. I want to know who, what, when, where, why, and how.
As we talked last night, I am an extrovert, and I love being up here in front of you and us visiting like this.
And I'm an introvert, and I'm still trying to figure out how he's convinced me to be up here in front of you.
Yeah. I love eating cereal out of a really big bowl with a really big spoon, like you're supposed to eat cereal, right?
And I eat cereal out of a normal size bowl with a normal spoon like a normal person.
I like my tea sweet,
I drink mine unsweet,
and I like my coffee black.
and I drink mine with milk.
I'm a morning person. I love the mornings. Earlier the better. I get up happy. I've never hit a snooze alarm. I wake up quick and easy.
I'm a night owl. In fact, it's usually mid-morning before I decide if I'm even going to be a Christian for the day.
Usually about 10 in there somewhere. I fall asleep very quickly at night. Sometimes I can just say I'm going to sleep now and do. And don't understand why other people don't.
It's a superpower. I'm convinced it's his superpower. And I'm pretty jealous of it because some nights I feel like I just lay there and wait until morning. Not the best sleeper.
Yeah. One of the things I enjoy about mornings is getting up and drinking coffee.
And I drink coffee in the mornings for the protection of others. I'm kind of a neat freak.
And I can be a little on the sloppy side.
When it comes to shopping, I love to use coupons, read labels, compare prices. If it's clothes, you got to try everything on before you buy it.
I can get a whole new wardrobe at wherever we're at in about 10 minutes. Put it in a basket and let's go.
And then you're taking half of it back. 'Cause
That's
it
true.
didn't work. In our house, the toilet paper goes over the top of the roll.
Before I got married, I didn't even know there's a right way to put toilet paper on a roll. I just grew up in a home where you just show up and you hope there's toilet paper there. But I've learned that there is a right way to put toilet paper on a roll. But one of the things that you find out is in marriage, a lot of times you look at your spouse and you go, they are so different. How did we fall in love and get married? But have you ever noticed, one of the things I think you need to understand is that many of your weaknesses, the things maybe you don't do well, are the things that are your spouse's strengths. And vice versa, the things that your spouse isn't really good at are the things that you're strong at. And I think one of the things that God does a lot of times, He takes 2 people that are flawed and they have strengths and weaknesses, and you go, why did He put 2 opposites together? And you wind up making a pretty solid person when you realize, hey, my strengths happen to be her weaknesses, so I'll do the things that I'm good at, and her strengths are my weaknesses, and she'll do the good things that she's good at. And marriage works really well when you see it from that viewpoint versus, why are they so different than I am? Rely on your strengths and play on your strengths, and that's really important. One of the things that we see that couples miss a lot of times is the fact that this is kind of what we want to shoot for in life. We want to figure out how do we get to 80 years, 70 years, 60 years? And not very many people get 80 years, but how do we get to our 80s when we're 80 years old and we take our spouse's hand and go, we did it, we made it. We have built a marriage that blessed us. And what you realize is you've also built a marriage that has blessed your kids. and you've built a marriage that will bless your grandkids. And a lot of couples can't see this far in advance, and this is really what you need to be shooting for. A lot of couples see the wedding as kind of the, hey, this is the big event. Everybody's going to forget your wedding. You're going to forget your wedding. The big event is not the wedding. The big event is what kind of marriage will you build in the end. Because if it blesses you and it blesses your kids and your grandkids, you've done the right kind of marriage. So let's spend a little time this morning. We're actually going to talk to husbands and wives this morning. We're going to spend a few minutes talking to husbands and a few minutes talking to wives. Just because that's kind of fun, we'll do husbands first. So husbands, wives, make sure you're taking lots of notes on this section, okay? Husbands, we're talking one thing that you really, really need to do that your wife loves, that you can't stop once you get married, and that's number one. Pursue your wife. Don't stop pursuing your wife. If there's one thing other than a relationship with God and adding God in your marriage that I would say husbands need to really do a good job at, step up and continue to pursue her once you've already won her. A lot of couples, we're completers. We're men who go, hey, I did that. Let's check that off. Whether it's deer hunting or whatever it is, I got my deer. I'm done this year. Why do I need to keep pursuing that thing? The marriage you have is a living thing. And you married a woman who fell in love with a guy who maybe sent some flowers and sent text messages and was sweet and complimented her and took her on dates. And those are all things she still wants. Keep pursuing her, even after you've won her. So I want you to notice that the next 8, 9 things on the list are all pursuit things, all action things that your wife really, really needs you to do. So let's talk about some of these for a second, all right? Let's just start off right off the bat, and let's talk about why it's important that you continue to date your wife even after you're married to her.
You dated a lot before you were married. It was how you got to know each other. It was, you were able to talk to each other. You were able to go do fun stuff together. And once you get married, sometimes you fall into that, why do I still have to date? I mean, the dating days are over. We're married now. But if you dated before you were married, which you did, she wants to keep dating you after you're married. Trey mentioned this statistic earlier that couples are spending 4 minutes a day together without distractions and interruptions. Well, dates provide that time for you where you can spend one-on-one without the distractions. So don't give that up. That's very important to keep doing. Now, we have a lot of couples that will say, we can't afford to go on a date. Dates are expensive. That's not in the budget. And we understand that because they can be expensive, but they don't have to be. We only go on like maybe one date a year that is what we would consider an expensive date, where we dress up, maybe we bought some really neat concert tickets, we go to a fancy restaurant. That's like a once a year, maybe our Christmas date that we like to do. But other than that, I mean, dates can be simple. They can be go somewhere that has a dollar menu, get a cheap meal, take a blanket to the park, and have a picnic. Cheap date. Dates don't have to be expensive. Babysitting can be an issue. We understand that as well. We had to get creative with this because we never lived in a town that we had any family. We never had grandparents, an aunt, whatever. So we hollered at some friends of ours that had kids close to the same age as ours and said, hey, if you guys would keep our kids on Friday night, we would love to keep your kids on Saturday night so that we can go on dates, and we would swap babysitting. So that was great. Our kids thought it was amazing because they could play with their friends 2 nights in a row. So they loved it. But yeah, just you can get creative with your dates. They don't have to be expensive, don't have to be big and fancy, but you do have to plan ahead for dating. You can't just wait for, a free night to open up. Look ahead on your schedule early in the week and go, hey, what does our schedule look like this week? Oh, Thursday night, we don't have anything going on. Let's go on a date. Now, we also understand that during the busy season of life, when your kids are busy and you're running here and there, sometimes you don't have a free evening. There were plenty of times that we didn't, and we would do lunch dates. Our schedule allowed us to be able to have lunch together as often as we could, and so that was our dates. for a period of time in our life. But make sure that you're still dating. It's so important. That's a great way to keep pursuing your wife.
That's it. Men, you may wonder why we put this on your list. And that is because whether you want to confess it or not, you're the one that was the date guy before marriage. You were the ones that was constantly asking her, are you free Friday night? I'd love for us to go do something. Are you free? And then Friday night's over and it's like, what about tomorrow night? You free tomorrow night? Because you loved hanging out with her. And then all of a sudden you get married and it's kind of like, she's like, hey, can we go out on a date? And you're like, well, just let me know what night and I'll see if I can clear my schedule. She still wants you to plan it. Believe it or not, one of the coolest things you can do is say, hey, honey, if you can line up a sitter Thursday night, I've got the whole evening planned, or Friday night. And you go plan the event, whether you're going to go eat, play putt-putt, go bowling, go whatever it is. Go hiking, and just tell her, surprise her. You may have to tell her, hey, I need you to wear hiking shoes or whatever it is. Give her a heads up. But she would love to have I have no clue what we're doing. We're just going to go have fun, and it's just us together. But you be the one that steps up and says, what's the schedule look like this week? Can we go on a date? There are some twos that we ought to have on this list. 3 twos that I think are essential in dating, all right? At least every 2 weeks you should be going on a date. There's number 1, the first 2. Every 2 weeks, minimum. If you can do more, some couples go, I can do once a week. Great, do once a week. You should be shooting for once every 2 weeks. Twice a year, there's your second 2. Twice a year, you should be trying to figure out a way to possibly, can we go stay overnight somewhere in a hotel or a bed and breakfast or somewhere without kiddos? That's very, very healthy that you do that. And then maybe once every 2 years, that's your third 2, multiple nights somewhere where we're going to go away for 2 or 3 days. That's real important when you have kids at home. And so we know that's tough. And if you got some little bitty tinies at home, we know that's a tough thing to pull off. And you may have to kind of work around that and do some stay-at-home dates and some different things like that. But it can be done. And we hear couples all the time say, oh, we had so much fun during our engagement when we were dating. And we're like, why have you stopped dating? Dating is still fuel for your marriage, and you should still be dating on a regular basis. Anything else you want to add there? Look at the second one, guys. Number 2, be affectionate. Be affectionate. Now, affection can look at a lot of different things.
Yeah. I hope you know your spouse's love language. If you don't, you need to Google the 5 love language test. It's free, it doesn't take very long, you can zip through there. But you need to be able to speak your spouse's love language, because it will, if you're going to be affectionate, if you're going to be romantic, your spouse may think that one thing is romantic that you see totally different. Some people think touch is romantic. So that's the pats on the arm, the squeeze when you walk by. This is non-sexual touching a lot of the times, especially for your wife. It does not, every time you touch, it does not need to be going somewhere for her, okay? She just wants you to touch her.
We read a statistic recently that said most women, this would be something you have to ask your wife, need 10 non-sexual touches a day. That just means from morning to night, you've held their hand sometime or another, you've squeezed their elbow, just something in there. Now, you may have a wife that's going, whoa, that is way too much. Hey, give me 1 or 2 and we're good for the day. So that's a good communication thing. And your wife may be going, I need way more than 10. But she needs about 10 non-sexual touches a day that just let her, and you can't get them all over in the morning by just kind of tapping her about 10 times. All right, we're good to go, or 10 fingers, yeah. But touch is very important.
Touch is important. Some people's love language is words of affirmation. So this is going to be, telling her you love her. She needs to hear those words. Telling her how awesome she is. Telling her she's a great mom. She's a great cook. Tell her she's beautiful. But use your words to affirm her. That is romantic, and that shows affection to a lot of people. Gifts, gift giving. I had to think about the love languages. Just little gifts. If you stop at a gas station, fill up with gas, you run in to pay the bill, come out with a snack. She always wants a snack. Don't question it. She may not be hungry. She may not want a snack. She wants the snack. Buy the snack. If she sends you to the store for a gallon of milk, sneak her favorite candy bar in the bag, that she can find when she's unloading the groceries. If you don't know what her favorite candy bar is, there's a homework assignment for you. Write that down. Ask what's her favorite candy bar.
Chocolate will work most of the time.
Flowers. Some women love getting the big bouquet of flowers. Now, this was a little source of contention for us early in marriage because Trey thought he was doing a really great thing by spending, $40, $50. It's probably even more than that now.
One of the differences between us is I'm the spender, she's the saver.
Saver,
All
yes.
right, there you go. That one should have been on the list.
So he would buy the flowers, and I would just be thinking, oh my goodness, I could have bought so many groceries with what he spent on those flowers. And this was early in marriage when our budget was teeny tiny. So I finally had to tell him, sweetheart, I love that you want to send me flowers. It's wonderful. They're beautiful. I love them. But please don't spend that much money on something that's going to die in a week, okay? Give me a gift certificate for, a clothes shop or a manicure, something other than, I don't know. Flowers were just not my thing, so you have to communicate that. But some people love the flowers, and send them to their workplace if they love the flowers, because that even, that tells the whole world how much you love your spouse. But little gifts, they don't have to be expensive. It's just the thought, that I was thinking of you, and you bring them little gifts from time to time. What's another one? Quality time. So that's, just spending time together. That may be watching a movie on the couch. That may be going for a walk after dinner. Whatever it is, you're spending time together. And
acts of service.
Acts of service. How could I forget that one? Because that's my love language. This is doing things for them to let them know that you love them. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to show it. So I think it's very romantic when Trey fills up with my car with gas. I love that he takes care of the car, and I don't have to do those kinds of things. When he fixes my coffee and brings it to me in the morning, acts of service. When he takes time to make the bed because he could care less if the bed is made or not, acts of service. I love that he takes time to do that. So, speak your spouse's love language.
One of the best things, husbands, you can do is ask your spouse, ask your wife, what are things that you like that I do? And then you can get an idea of what you're doing and do those more often. And so, be affectionate. That's important. Number 3, treat your wife like she's God's daughter. All right, I love this point. Let's talk about this for a second. Treat your wife like she is God's daughter. So one of the things that is so beneficial in understanding how God created us, if you married a Christian girl, you married someone who belonged to God before they belonged to you. You married someone who is God's daughter, and treating her as such is so important. When Lee and I married as a very young couple, I remember us visiting in her room, and we were just kind of kidding around. And I said, "Are we getting married?" Or one of us said, "Are we getting married next summer?" "Yeah, next summer it is. We're planning on getting married. We'll go off to school together." And I said, "Okay, that sounds great." And she said, "We got one thing we got to do." And I said, "What is that?" She said, "You need to ask my dad." And I remember thinking, well, that marriage is off because he's big and he's scary, and I'm not going to go in there and ask him if I had respect for her dad, who is a very good man. Think about for a second, if you married a Christian woman, you've married a daughter of the King. You have a heavenly father-in-law that's a lot scarier than any father-in-law on this earth. Does that make sense? And so there are places in the Bible that specifically talk about how important it is that you treat God's girls with grace and gentleness and mercy and delicate. Treat her like she's God's daughter. Now, ladies, you know this. This goes both ways. If you married a Christian man, you also treat him like God's son. I really feel that there'll come a day someday when there will be people held accountable for the way that they treated God's kids, their spouse. And so it's important that we treat our spouse in a certain way. So let me read you a verse, if I can, real quick, out of 1 Peter chapter 3. You're going, Trey, where'd you get all this? Is this real stuff? So 1 Peter chapter 3, you've probably heard this before. Down in verse 7, husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect. Treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs in the gracious gift of life, so that nothing hinders your prayers. There's two things I want you to note right there. Now, weaker partner does not mean lesser partner, okay? Weaker partner doesn't mean lower partner. Weaker partner means she is a more delicate partner. You treat her delicately, carefully. You be gentle with her physically, emotionally, sexually, every other way. You be delicate with her. Notice the last part of that verse, so that nothing hinders your prayers. You know what Peter's getting at? If you're not treating your wife right, it's almost as if he's saying, don't waste your time praying to God, because he's not going to be listening to you anyway. Don't be asking God to bless you, because he's not going to be listening. If you can't treat his daughter well, if you can't treat his son well, if you can't treat his children well, and then you're asking for blessings from him, something's going to be hindering your prayers. So treat your wife like she is one of God's children, which she is. Because gentleness and kindness and tenderness go a long way. One of the things I love most about the Song of Solomon, a book right smack dab in your Bible that deals with a couple who are very romantic, is the way that he treats his wife. The words he uses, the gentle words he uses, the terms of affection that he uses, not our terms of affection. We use things like sweetheart and darling and honey and precious. And he used those same things, but he used different terms that meant the same things back in those days. And when you read the Song of Solomon and you look at them and you go, boy, I want a marriage like theirs. Take note of just how gentle and delicate he is with his bride. So, let's look at number 4. Pray with and for her. Pray with and for her.
Yes, what a wonderful way to pursue your wife. Ask her what you can pray for her. Be sure and let her know that you're praying for her. But don't miss out on the praying with her. Build that spiritual intimacy that can be such a bond for couples in marriage. We ran across a statistic a while back from... not the Gottman one. What was the other one?
I would have known if you'd have asked. Yeah.
Oh, they do all this. They do all the studies.
Yeah.
Anyway, less than 1% of couples that pray together every day end up in divorce. That is a pretty amazing statistic. So talk about a wonderful way to safeguard your marriage.
Yeah. We get tickled. I get tickled at you. If you follow us, some of y'all follow us on Instagram. Instagram, we have a lot of followers that aren't Christian people that follow us on Instagram. And we post a lot of times, here's, say, 10 things you can do that will bless your marriage. And regularly in those 10 things, we're talking like go on dates, hold her hand, things like we're talking here. But we'll oftentimes put in there, pray with your spouse. And people all the time are like, Gallup Pulse. People all the time are like, why would you include that in there? That has nothing to do with my relationship with my spouse. And we're like, it gives us a great opportunity to talk to people who either aren't believers or aren't Christians, to tell them, hey, look at this statistic from Gallup. How can you not, even if you're not a believer in God, how can you not look at this statistic done by an organization that's not known for their Christian polls, and see statistics that say that less than 5% of marriages that pray together divorce, how can you not look at that and wonder, that's got to be on a list? Anything that keeps you from getting a divorce has got to be on a list of 10 things that are good for your marriage. And so, you've got to be, and they're always like, wow, I didn't know that. I don't know what to do with that exactly. And we're like, pray with your spouse. That's obviously a good thing. Anything that drops a divorce rate from 50% to 5% in your marriage, there's got to be something to that, and you've got to take it serious. And praying with your spouse is a really big deal. Number 6, help her around the house, or share the load. That's a good way to put that. Share the load. And we live in a time where most people, the husbands and wives, work outside the home, but still oftentimes you find a wife who does most of the housework and stuff around the house.
Yes. I stayed home with our kids when they were little. That was a choice that we both made, that we wanted for our family. But it's, we are finding that in these times that both the husband and the wife are having to work outside the home. And so when both are working, you can't expect, for the woman to come home and to have to still do all the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and taking care of all the kids and helping with the homework and all of that, because she will literally just drop in bed exhausted every night if that's the case. So she needs a little help around the house. She really does. And I have some friends who their husband works outside the home, they work outside the home, yet when they come home, he's in his recliner and she's up all evening doing all of these things that I just said. That can cause some resentment to build up, and that's not what you want in your marriage. So, pick up the dish rag, wash a couple of dishes, run the vacuum cleaner, help with the kids. It's a good thing. You need to be involved in your home anyway. So help around the house. Split the chores.
Another statistic, this is a real statistic. I didn't make this up. Women didn't make this up. It is a statistic that's out there that clearly shows, this was a Gottman Institute statistic, husbands who help around the house more have a better sex life than those that don't. And we've had husbands that go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're telling me that if I get up and take out the trash, I'm saying, hey, I didn't do the statistic. I'm just telling you, maybe it's because she's not so exhausted dropping into bed because you've helped her around the house that day. But like it or not, that's a real statistic. Husbands have better sex lives when they help around the house and do more things around the house. Look at the next one. Be interested in things your wife is interested in. Be interested in things that your wife is interested in. Take an interest in her things. Ask her about work. Ask her about her hobbies. If she plays golf, ask her about how golf went, And better yet, find time to go, hey, can I go with you sometime on whatever it is. Finding similar interests in marriage are essential. Things that you like to do together. And that's really one of the reasons you fell in love and got married, was because y'all started hanging out, and you started going on dates, and you started doing things together, and it's like, I can't live without her anymore, and I can't live without him. We just have so much fun together. And then a lot of times you get married and you have some kids, and it's like, we don't ever do anything together anymore. And sometimes couples go, we've kind of fallen out of love. You really hadn't fallen out of love. You've fallen out of friendship. You've quit doing stuff together. You quit hanging out. You quit having some fun. Having fun together is really important. Finding some similar interests. We talked a couple of years ago while we were here about things that I've learned to like that Lee likes. Lee has always been she loves antique stores. She loves trade days, flea markets. She loves vintage, old things, old furniture, old antique things, and I've learned to like all those things. I'll go to an antique store with her. I can walk through a trade days or a flea market, and I can point out the very things that she's going to stop and look at that she's got interest in, because I've learned to like those things. I've learned to ask questions to figure out what she's like. And so it gives us something to have conversation about. Whatever it is, an antique piece of furniture, a piece of furniture that could have been redone to make really pretty, whatever it is that that she might want to make, something along those lines. A few years ago, she asked for her birthday. I said, what do you want for your birthday? Our youngest was old enough to stay home by himself for a weekend, and she said, would you take me to Canton, Texas? And I thought, yeah, that sounds fun. What's in Canton, Texas? She said, it's Texas' biggest flea market. Said we literally, from the time we get there on Friday, won't have time to see all of it before we leave on Sunday. And I remember thinking, that's the worst idea in the world. Why would anybody want to go see a bunch of garage sale stuff? But you know, I had decided you're going to go and you're going to have fun and you're going to have a great attitude. If she wants you to go with her, you're going to go and have, and her being frugal helped. I'd walk by, you mean buy that for you? No, I don't want you to buy that for me. But we had the best time. I enjoyed tremendously our weekend in Canton, Texas, and we probably need to go back and do it again sometime. But you learn to take an interest in things that your spouse is interested in. That is so, so important. Number 7, be the spiritual leader in your home. I told you last night that when you became a dad, God pushed that job description to your side of the table and said, here, this is your job. You are to be the spiritual leader in the home. You step up. You don't send your family to church. You lead them to church. You don't tell your kids this is how it's going to be. You show them. You model values and integrity, and that is extremely important that your kids see that in you. You teach them how to treat other people. And better yet, you show them. Because it is something that is your job that you and I, God has given and said, be that leader in your home who will pray with your kids, who will at times stand up and go, hey, we don't watch this show in our house. This is not a very clean show. Speak up at times when something needs said. And so be that spiritual leader in your home. And we'll talk more about this in the last session today. Number 8. Pursue her and not pornography. You know, one of the things today that is a big struggle, I wish we had more time to talk about it, over $8 billion a year is done in, the porn industry makes that kind of money, just a ridiculous amount of money. And that's billion, that's a lot of zeros yearly. More than the NFL, the NBA, the Major League Baseball, and NCAA all combined make in a year. Porn industry makes in a year. There's a lot of people, and it's not always just husbands, sometimes it's wife, that instead of pursuing their wife, they take the easy way out and pursue pornography, and that's hard on your marriage. It's not right. There is physical cheating, there's emotional cheating, and that's where I connect with someone who's not my wife, and maybe I'm texting them and hiding it from her. There's also mental cheating, and that's watching stuff I shouldn't be watching, wishing I was involved in it. Be cautious about that. Pursue your wife, not pornography. It will make your marriage so much better when it is done correctly. Pornography is hard on your marriage. It's hard on your expectations of sex and the body and what God designed it for. So be very, very cautious about where you get your information on how sex is supposed to work and everything else. Anything you want to add to that? Okay, we're going to, it has been a while, and we're moving a little slow this morning, but that's all right. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, stretch our legs, come back. Guys, take a deep breath. You're through. We're going to do the girls next, okay? We're going to talk about the ladies here at 10:10 is where we're going to start on that, all right? Session short. Sorry, we had to take a break. We've been in here for an hour and 5 minutes. Bathroom and coffee. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. We started a little late, but